fix your drinking and drug problem, and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Attention all business owners and creative minds. Do you need a unique and personalized touch for your products? Look no further than Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs. We offer custom laser engraving services for a variety of products, including promotional items and corporate or personal gifts. With state-of-the-art equipment and a team of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Hey travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
What's up, North Texas? How are y'all doing today? I see some of y'all are already in the chat. I see JV is already in the chat dropping his takes about the breaking news today, which we will get to in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure and say hello to everyone. Hello to everyone watching from North Texas and beyond. This is another episode of Bitches Love Sports, and I'm your host, Jazz Monet. And we've got a great show for you today, even though I had to adjust pretty much on the fly. I had something else, completely something else planned, and I basically had to figure out with the rest of you that Trayvon Diggs was released from the Cowboys, and I've been just trying to get as much information as possible since then. And if you are listening, we're going to get to that in a second, but if you are watching, then you see a gentleman next to me that you probably don't recognize. This is David Richardson of PLYMKR Global Sports Marketing and Events, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am, you did. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Glad to be here. Pleasure to meet you.
I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for letting me know that I got it right. We're going to talk more to David later on in the segment, but we do want to make sure we get straight the rumors and the facts about what happened with Trayvon Diggs and the Dallas Cowboys today. And in case you haven't figured it out, this does mean we might not have a lot of time for the Mavs talk. We might not have a lot of time for the Wings talk. We won't have time for the defensive coordinator talk that I thought we were going to get to today. So make sure you turn your notifications on so that when we do have time to get back to y'all about that, you'll know. You can join us in the chat or make sure that you see that video after the fact. But yeah, so in case you hadn't heard, but I think a lot of you have because y'all showed up early today. But in case you hadn't heard, the Dallas Cowboys have released Trayvon Diggs. This is not speculation. This is not a rumor. Yes, they released him with 1 week left in the season. And it's not 100% clear why. Everybody's been talking about the speculation, the reasons why they think he was released. But if you've been reading the tea leaves, if you've been following along this season, you might have seen this coming. So one of the things that we talked about during training camp, one of the storylines out of training camp was that press conference that the Joneses did where they were mostly talking about Micah Parsons. Those were the questions at the time. But there was one reporter who asked Jerry Jones, why not get more contracts done early like he had done with, and that reporter mentioned specifically Trayvon Diggs and Terrence Steele. And when that reporter mentioned those names, Jerry Jones said, well, in hindsight, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in so many words, he said, in hindsight, was that a good idea? Was it a good move to get those deals done early? And if y'all remember the episode that I did after that press conference, I came to y'all and I was like, yo, everybody's talking about the disrespect to Micah Parsons. But did y'all hear what he said about Trayvon Diggs? Is that not disrespectful as hell to suggest that, somebody that you extended through 2028, mind you? So, just another fact about this contract, it's not like it was supposed to be up at the end of the season, even though a lot of people did anticipate that move would be made. But Trayvon Diggs' contract was supposed to go through 2028. And to turn around in a press conference that everybody has their eyes on and say, that might have been a mistake to sign this guy, I was like, whoa, that's rude as fuck. Especially considering the season hadn't started. And yes, there was a little bit of tension surrounding the disciplinary actions related to his failure to rehab in the way that the team wanted him to, in the way that he was honestly contractually obligated to. So, yeah, that was kind of on him. But still, it was one of those things that if you were watching, you kind of might have raised an eyebrow or two at that statement. Fast forward, there's tension between the Joneses and Micah Parsons, yet every time Micah Parsons is in front of the camera, Trayvon Diggs is there next to him. It did kind of present an image of, okay, Trayvon Diggs not staying neutral on this, and he's definitely not doing what seems to be best for the team. It seems like he is taking a side here, and he's taking a side that is going against Jerry Jones. He's voicing displeasure with the way the whole contract situation is being handled. Fast forward, he was also voicing displeasure about, reportedly voicing displeasure about the defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus. And I mean, we all did, but it's kind of different when you're a player. So we've just kind of seen this storyline about Trayvon Diggs with the Dallas Cowboys and whether or not they're on the same page, whether or not he was good for the culture, whether or not he was good for the team. We've kind of seen that develop and evolve as the season has gone on. And now we're here at this point where maybe the timing is shocking for a lot of people, but there are a lot of people who kind of, based on what we've been seeing between Trayvon Diggs and the organization, they predicted that this day might come. JV says, signing Blandon Ferguson was better, though. JV, that is a much longer conversation for a different day. I'm going to say, right now, what I'll say about that is, I feel like when it comes to who gets signed and when and for how much, you kind of have to judge each of those situations on a case. And JV, I see you have a lot of thoughts, but I do want to get to something that one Jordan Schwartz said on Twitter. Hold on, let me pull that up. Because I think I've seen Jane Slater comment on this, and so far, no one has given a concrete reason, by the way. I've been watching my notifications to see if the Cowboys end up doing a press conference at the same time as my show, which happens often. So far, nothing. But Brian Schottenheimer usually does do a press conference on Tuesdays anyway. So we'll see if he ends up showing. But so far, no news from him, no official statement from the team, nothing of that nature. But on Twitter, now known as X, Jordan Schwartz says, my understanding of the Trayvon Diggs situation is this. After the Cowboys finished their Christmas game versus the Commanders, Diggs requested with head coach Brian Schottenheimer to stay in Washington for the holiday since he's from the area and his family stays there. Players often ask for, and are usually granted, additional family time during the holidays if the schedule makes sense. Dallas played on Thursday, so they had about 10 days until their next game. Schotty denied the request. Diggs again said he wanted to be with his family and that if he went back to Dallas, he'd just be flying right back on the first flight out, especially with players having several days off. The team vehemently denied his request again. And then today, the team released him. Diggs is healthy and ready to join a new team for the playoffs. Now, the details around the denial of that request have not been released to my knowledge. If y'all are watching and you know anything, feel free to share it in the chat. Feel free to DM me a link if you're following me on any platform where you can do that. But we've heard in the past about Trayvon Diggs being less than receptive to feedback, to changes within the organization. So I have a feeling that, if he was denied this request and asked repeatedly, maybe he did something, maybe he said something that the organization didn't necessarily like. Perhaps. Once again, supposedly, reportedly, allegedly. These are rumors. This is hearsay. We don't know. But if I were to find out that Trayvon Diggs did or said something to offend someone or some people within the organization, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And then there's just everything else that's been going on. When it comes to the storyline between Trayvon Diggs and the Dallas Cowboys, one could come up with a number of reasons that we can imagine this split happening, whether it's because of the culture, whether it's because of his gameplay, whether it's because of his reported interactions with leadership in the organization and coaches. There's a lot that has not worked out in terms of being beneficial to Trayvon Diggs' image. So here we are. JV, I'm curious. Do you really dislike Shotty because of this decision? Like, are you that passionate about Trayvon Diggs being a part of the Dallas Cowboys that this alone has made you dislike Shotty? Because honestly, I don't even know what Shotty had to do with it. I can't really be mad at him for denying your request because I don't know what the details surrounding that are. I don't know what do you have any clue? Do you have friends in the league where you can say what usually happens when players make this kind of request, David?
I mean, crazy thing is I've trained with Trayvon a few times back in the day when I was coming out from my draft. And, with Trayvon probably, he's been with the team since he got drafted. So, like, when you're around a team that long in the city, you kind of, it's personal to you. So, like, when the team's not doing good, obviously, since he's been at the team that long, he's going to say something. As far as he's being an all-pro and stuff like that, he has every right to kind of express his feelings and stuff like that. Obviously, with emotions behind it, it come off a certain way to certain people. Obviously, Jerry Jones doesn't like that because he wants to run the team. But like in his instance, it's just like, he wants to be part of this organization, but at the same time, if he can't really like succeed like he want to, or like, as it seems like he's growing away from the team, then obviously, it's time for him to go. And go, just kind of like with Michael Parsons, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, he would want to stay, but as far as you want to be somewhere where you want to play at, and an organization appreciates you, then you kind of, when you're that player that kind of contributes to the team's success, you kind of do want into like what happens in leadership and stuff like that. A lot of quarterbacks. So I mean, for him, it's just one of those situations where like I think he just kind of grew away from the Cowboys, and obviously he wasn't playing good this season, which that can take a toll on you too. I'm a football player too, so I can understand where he's coming from, especially like football's not going my way. Let me just spend some time with him and let me get away real quick, and then you go to your old team and no, you know what I mean? What do you mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? So like it's a lot of personal stuff that probably went into this decision. But
undoubtedly, there was personal stuff. But I'm going to say this. I'm not convinced that he actually wanted to be with the Dallas Cowboys.
Probably
I know
not.
he said that, but there was no indication that that was true. And I guess that's another reason why I can't really be mad at Shotty or say, like, even if Shotty did have anything to do with this decision, or if it's supposedly Shotty's fault, if people want to paint it as Shotty's fault because he should have approved the opportunity for him to do this. Like I said, I don't know what went into that.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was something where they agreed with the entire team, hey, everybody's coming back. I have no clue what went into that decision. But I will say, when it comes to your comment about, him possibly wanting to have a say, that's understandable. But one thing I can say about the Dallas Cowboys is that it's very clear what kinds of people they allow to have a say.
For sure.
For
sure.
So it's like
They run a
you
strict
can
program over
either
there.
play ball and learn how to at least present yourself as one of those people enough to have the influence that you want to have, or accept that you're never going to have that relationship with the leadership, right?
Gotcha.
Because it's like we see how Dak Prescott presents himself to the media.
For sure.
You know, and it's like if you compare that to how he presents himself, like, let's say the kinds of things that we see on Hard Knocks, you can tell that there's a certain way that he talks to his coaches, there's a certain way that he talks to the Joneses, and then there's a certain way that he talks to his teammates. He adjusts his presentation accordingly.
Facts.
And then there's other people who have been presented as leaders, like Tyler Smith, like Oso Digizua on the defensive side, right? You can kind of start to see the pattern of the type of guys that they trust to make decisions and have influence, right? But on the flip side, if you look at someone like CeeDee Lamb, for example, who had to grow into that, CeeDee Lamb wasn't always the leader that they proclaimed him to be this season. He literally had to make those adjustments. And I feel like he, like Trayvon Diggs, they both had that option to say, okay, do I want to be the leader, and do I want to adjust my character and grow as a man in order to be the kind of leader that the Dallas Cowboys will allow to have influence? Or do I want to be like, no, I'm going to be myself, I'm going to be who I am regardless, and just sacrifice that type of impact on the team? Yes?
You know what? That's kind of tricky because, you know, being on a team, there's two different type of leaders. There's a guy that's gonna be vocal, like Dak Prescott, gonna present himself as a leader, and that looks, you know, from A to Z like a leader. But then you have guys that just lead by example and lead by play. I think those are the leaders that Trayvon and CD are. No, they're not gonna sit in front of media.
In what way was Trayvon like a leader this season?
I wouldn't say this season, but essentially him just playing ball, him, you know, on game days. Like, that's what I'm saying. There's a leader by like vocal, and there's a leader by example as far as the play. For example, like,
okay,
I think, and like I see this by experience. Like, yeah, you get on a football team, you might have a leader like a Dak Prescott that everybody's gonna listen to and stuff like that. But then there's gonna be a leader where he doesn't even say nothing. You just see him perform and is like one of the best players on the team and doing great, and you be like, okay.
But it's been a while since Trayvon was that. There was a time
you right.
He was an all-pro. He was breaking records in his position, right? But over the last 3 seasons, he's missed like 30 games and hasn't rehabbed properly. And then on top of that, you causing trouble. Like, you making headlines by stuff you're saying. It's bad enough what the Joneses are doing. It's bad enough what Mike is doing. And then you throw yourself in the ring, making headlines, making comments, putting out YouTube videos to tell your side of the story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt.
I know, and
I play DB.
I've been there.
And, you know what I'm saying?
Understand.
So I just know kind of what the time he's going through right now, especially when you're not playing good. It kind of messes up your whole agenda. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, like, maybe it is time for, you know, Trayvon to get new scenery, go to a different place. And then, you know, Dallas always had, you know, they have some good DBs, like Blam, some other DBs. So I think they'll be good without him. I mean, they've been 2 years they've been playing without Trayvon. So, you know, I think they'll be good, but I think, you know, Trayvon just needs a different scenery and stuff like that.
I definitely understand you wanting to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I
don't blame you. I have at various points during the season, I've like felt compelled to do the same thing. Like, there are some people who might say like, nah, in such and such episode, you was kind of soft on him. And they might be able to say that more than once. Because like, I really did want to see him bounce back. Like, the defense was good when Trayvon Diggs was good. I enjoyed watching him play when he was playing at his best. Of course, I want to see that again. Yeah. But at the same time, I can't deny the reality of the situation, which is that there was no good news coming out of that locker room about him. Trayvon. Nothing you heard about Trayvon Diggs this entire season was good. Nothing was redeeming. Nothing. There was not even any news of him like trying to redeem himself. Like, I think I even made the point at one point because there was some press conference when Brian Schottenheimer was talking about him, and I was just like, you know, they asked him about Trayvon Diggs, and, you know, Brian Schottenheimer said that they were looking forward to him coming back, and I was like, yeah, but, you know, they're not talking about him the way that they were talking about, like, CD when he was injured during the season, for example. You know what I'm saying? Or other players that have suffered injuries during the season. You could kind of tell that the vibe, the tone was a little bit different when Brian Schottenheimer was talking about Trayvon Diggs coming back. So while he said, like, yeah, Trayvon is rehabbing, we're looking forward to bringing him back, the vibe was different, and honestly, the vibes have been bad. It's felt toxic, even for people who had no idea what was going on this season. I think even just from hearing the rumors, you kind of got the idea that, like, things aren't really looking good. Now, I personally didn't expect them to make this change at this point in the season. I feel like for them to do it with one game left, something must have happened. And as far as the rhetoric of him maybe going to a team and playing in the playoffs, it would have to be a team that actually needs that kind of depth. Because,
sure.
for 1 week...
And there's a couple teams like that.
Yeah. Do you have any in mind, or you just kind of know off the top of your head there's a couple?
The Eagles are short. That's a rival. That's a rivalry team.
That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. The Buccaneers, not the Buccaneers, San Francisco. They need some help with DB. Who else? I ain't gonna lie. With a talent like Trayvon...
Well, Deshaun in the chat seems to think he should go to Tampa Bay.
I think with a talent like Trayvon, when you bring something like that as a talent level, I think any team can benefit from that. But obviously, off the field, stuff like that needs to be taken care of. But as far as you need to make a playoff run, I feel like Trayvon will be a good addition to your defensive back room for sure.
I agree. The off the field stuff does need to be taken care of, and it looks like most of the people in the chat are actually upset about this. From just the comments I'm reading through, it looks like y'all are not a fan of the decision. So if you are watching or listening and haven't commented yet, just simply comment, do you think this was the right thing to do based on what you've heard about the Trayvon Diggs situation, or do you think this is a situation where the Cowboys messed up? Honestly, I personally do not have a problem with the decision.
I see Chicago... And that's a good thing because his old DB coach is the DB coach at Chicago.
Yes.
So maybe, that could be a good situation too.
Honestly, and you can maybe speak to this, and this might be a good place to transition into who you are and what you do. But as a football player yourself, how much of a difference does a change of scenery actually make? Because we talk about that all the time.
Oh.
And I'm thinking everything from his play on the field to how he feels, which could impact his attitude off the field, all of that could change in a different location.
Yeah, people got to understand, that's one of the biggest things. As far as, a change of scenery, that's just just regular people, have a job and, you're not liking a job, let me go to let me try something new, and then you kind of succeed at that new job because it's new scenery. You can start all over and stuff like that. That's just like with football. There's a couple times where, I didn't like the team I was on and I went to a new team and kind of elevated my game. I went to 3 different colleges. So, first college I went to was Tulsa University, small division 1, Oklahoma. Didn't like it. Freshman year transfer, went to junior college and then excelled from there kind of. So, change the scenery, change the coaching staff, all that kind of plays in a part. It's not just play, so even the city. You might be in a and that's kind of the main reason I didn't like Tulsa a little bit, because I'm from Dallas, I'm a city kid, and then I go to Tulsa where there's nothing there, and
it's not much, no.
As far as being a football player, you do have a good amount of time outside of football, and I didn't see myself living in Tulsa for 4 years, you know what I mean? So that's when I transferred to junior college in California, loved it. But then it's a change in scenery and the change of just being a brand new person, starting from scratch.
So it's about more than just the coaches and the culture.
Yeah, it could be about the city. Yeah, it could be the environment, the city. You know what I mean? The people around the city. That changes a whole lot. It's a life decision. You know what I'm saying? Just if somebody said, "Look, we're going to transfer your job transfer over to, let's say, Utah. Do you really want to go to Utah? I don't know. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. But you know what I'm saying? It's you not just football. Hey, am I gonna play good football? But do I see myself living here for the next 4 or 5 years? Do I want to sign a contract extension here in Green Bay where there's nothing there? For a long period of time and see me raising a family. You know what I'm saying? All that, being a football player plays a part. So I think people outside need to consider that as far as, when they make these opinions, stuff like that, where, it's just something like that where, a lot of stuff as far as being a human being in life, it matters.
I get it. I dig it. And I like the fact that you made the comparison to people with their jobs, because I feel like even if you've never played a team sport, never been an athlete, that is something that you can relate to, where you can go to a different place and do the same job by title, but it just feels different. But on that note, everybody in the chat, keep dropping your takes. If you have questions about the Trayvon Diggs news, about him being released from the Dallas Cowboys, feel free to drop your takes. If you hear anything new on Twitter, feel free to give me a heads up and I'll check it out. So far, the Cowboys have not begun any sort of press conference or dropped a video from Brian Schottenheimer or anything. So we have yet to hear official word from the Cowboys head coach on that. But before we go to the break, I do want to at least make sure y'all know a little bit more about who David is. So, basically, y'all have heard me talk a little bit about global sports and just how football is going global. And I think it might have been the last episode, actually, where I said, pretty much every sport has a global element. But football's footprint is actually bigger than a lot of people realize. And David is someone who has played football internationally and is also doing work when it comes to marketing and events for football players who want to grow their global brand. So I'll let you continue introducing yourself. Let's start with start where you want to start, with the player side or the business side.
I mean, just give you an elevator story who I am, from Dallas, Texas, to be exact, Rockwall. Grew up, was a football player there. Signed to Tulsa, did the whole college thing, and then unfortunately, my draft class was during COVID. So with me jumping up and down from schools in college and me not having a stable career, like a football career in college, it was kind of hard for me to make it to the NFL. So, which is another story about me getting overseas. Just the opportunity came to me, and I kind of jumped into it. And so I've been playing overseas football this is going on the 7th year.
Oh, nice.
And so I tell everybody, I've been around the world twice playing ball.
Where have you played?
First to start off in Budapest, Hungary.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And then from there I spent a couple years in Mexico, in Germany. And then these past couple years I actually was going back and forth, because one thing about football, internationally, some countries start different seasons. Mm-hmm. So for me, I will be playing professional football in Mexico in January, in the spring, and then right after the season in the fall, I'll have a contract already signed to play in Paris, France. So I'll go right after. Usually what would happen is after that last game, I'll fly back to Dallas, see mom, see family, say hey, and then I'll be flying over to Paris, France to play there for the summer. Then come back around October around and have 3 months off season and get right back into it. So
that's gotta be crazy culturally to go from Mexico, stop in America, then go to Paris,
do
it again.
Even just me learning the new languages, I still haven't yet to learn, at least be able to have a full conversation in these languages, due to the fact is because, I'm in Mexico speaking Spanish, or trying to speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. And then I get back to the States, gotta speak, not even thinking about Spanish now. Now I'm speaking English, and then now I gotta switch over to French, and it's my mind hasn't worked like that. What I'm saying?
What language do they speak in Hungary?
Hungarian, and that it sounds like noises. It doesn't even sound like words. It's
I don't think I've ever heard Hungarian. I just assumed they spoke, because how some countries they'll speak a different.
For sure, no, it's Hungarian. I don't even think I know one word from Hungary, to be honest with you. It was so long ago, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been playing overseas for 6 years. Currently, just started a platform, a marketing company, a global marketing company to help football become, at least be seen internationally. Mm-hmm. As far as the business side, helping coaches, business as far as marketing, market certain players internationally or build the football market internationally. But also help develop the football game, because that's a big part of it, is the development. A lot of countries don't have the resources we have in America because football is our game. You know what I mean? So I think for me, and that was one of our jobs as being an international football player, not only to go up there and just obviously win games and, play for the organization, but we're also titled as football ambassadors. So our jobs also was over there to teach the guys we were playing with football, because obviously we have better coaches than other countries do. And then also what would usually happen is we would kind of do side jobs and hold camps and do development for.
Put a pin in that, because we're about to go to break, and I don't want the music to cut you off. So put a pin in that. We'll come back, and when we come back, you'll hear more about why his business is necessary. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is more than just a book. We provide authors professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
And we are back. Welcome back, everybody, to Bitches Love Sports on NTX Radio. In the first segment, we spent a lot of time talking about Trayvon Diggs being released from the Dallas Cowboys, but I've also got Mr. David Richardson here with me of PLYMKR. I'm going to just call it PLYMKR.
For sure.
Of PLYMKR. And he is involved with global sports marketing and events. And we're going to get back to his story in just a moment. But real quick, I'm going to pull up this comment by Royal just because I'm curious. Royal 007, good to see you in the chat, says, I don't know why Jerry is so jealous. I don't know why Jerry fired Jimmy. Ever since back in 1994, that should have never happened. I think we could have had multiple Super Bowls. With you on that, I am. But I'm worried. I'm not worried. I'm wondering, are you tying that to the Trayvon Diggs situation? Are you saying there's something about Jerry Jones's ego that led to the release of Trayvon Diggs? Because if that's what you're saying, I would love to see you flesh that out in the chat. I'm curious about the connection that you're making there. I agree with this point. I'm just wondering if you're connecting it to the overall conversation. So I'll be looking for that comment, Royal. But let's get back to Mr. Richardson, David. I never even asked you what I should call you. I'm sorry. But
David's
looking
fine.
back to your
David's
story.
fine. So
in the first segment, we were talking about how you've played overseas. You played in Hungary. You play in Mexico. You play in Paris. A real just around-the-world guy.
For sure.
And at some point, you started your business to help football players build their global brands.
Yes.
So talk about when you realized that was necessary and what exactly you do.
Once I realized that was necessary is because when I was playing in these countries, they looked at me like I was like the Trayvon Diggs or, the Dak Prescott. And so like my kind of platform that I had was kind of, like an NFL player has in the States. Obviously this was the time where, the NFL and, football was, tapping into the global stuff. But it was more about football, not the individual player, I guess you could say. So I was like, as far as, just simple stuff like, me getting experience when I go to a mall and, I can't even get out the mall because there's so many kids and so many people that know me from the billboard or stuff like that. I was like, I'm getting this notoriety in this platform and I don't even play in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it was like kind of a light bulb was like, what if I actually bring like some of my friends? 'Cause I'm from Dallas. So like, me being around NFL players, that's any given day. So it was like, what if I actually kind of give them experiences where they can kind of build their global platform in these countries, and also see like the platform they have in the States is actually growing, internationally. So that's kind of how I started, and that's kind of like really, to be honest with you, that's the only reason why I kept playing ball, is to get these networks and kind of build this network that I have now, to help these guys. So for example, the season's finna end in 2 months. So after that, they're gonna be traveling. So, as far as going to these other countries and kind of doing like what I did, like be a football ambassador, but obviously since these guys have the star power or have that NFL logo behind them, it means more for them due to the fact that, right now NFL is trying to push it globally. But for the NFL, like I said, they're doing it for NFL, not, for a Trayvon Diggs or a Dak Prescott or a, Jackson Smith-Njigba, like the guys like that. So that's kind of when I was like, I was able to do this for myself internationally. Why not actually get the NFL players to come over here and kind of make an impact internationally like I've done? But obviously, like, I can only do so much just because, I'm not the NFL player. But obviously, I'm making an impact by bringing these guys over here. One, because these guys get just a travel experience. I think that's been the best thing that I've ever had, that I've done, was kid and get to interact with these guys. Most of them got to do it from a phone, internet, and they're fans, but it'll mean more if they can actually, they'll throw a camp out there and they go to camp and get to learn some techniques from these guys.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, as big as these guys are in America, they could be even bigger in a global sense. Huge. Just by having the right connections and getting in the right place.
And I kind of, obviously being in the business, seeing everything, because like when I was traveling, obviously football is not the biggest sport in Mexico or in Europe. It's soccer, basketball.
I'm sure it's not the biggest in Hungary.
No, for sure not. Tennis, pickleball, stuff like that. So when I was actually, I'm actually going to these sports events. I've been to a couple PSG games, been to a couple games in Mexico as far as soccer. Oh. And it was like those sports, and it's kind of like I said, it's way different than, because here it's football. Mm-hmm. And so when I went over there, it was almost like these guys, like these soccer, for example, like I can pull up right now a regular 6-man off the bench soccer player. He has 15 million followers just because soccer is an international sport. Wow. Same thing as a basketball player. Like since basketball is an international sport, when these dudes get drafted or whatever, they automatically get put into an international platform because, this goes way back in time when Yao Ming, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, basketball.
Yeah, basketball really has international roots right now.
Even these basketball guys, even what I want to say, this past summer, I think Ja Morant went on a global tour, and when he came back, they was like, "What did you kind of realize?" He's like, "I realized I'm global." You know what I mean? Like I have a global presence, and that's because
about.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And the crazy thing is, it's funny because like obviously trying to make it NFL, but how I kind of like brag to my NFL friends is like I'm global. Like, I'm sorry.
You're good.
I'm global. Like I can call somebody right now in Budapest, Hungary, and make sure when I get over there, I'm taken care of. You know what I mean? So going back to like the sports and stuff, like soccer, stuff like that, like those are global sports where these guys. Like getting strict into the business, like when they get these Nike deals or these Reebok deals, Reebok has to come correct with the money amount because it's an international campaign now. With the football guys, it's only domestic, so we're only gonna give you money for what you can do for us in the States because we know you don't have a global reach.
So you're saying a football player who takes his American brand, like even if they're a star here already, if they were to start making attempts to go global, they could make even more money.
For sure.
Maybe even with the same companies that they're already working with.
For sure.
Just by having a bigger
Because that's just like if I was a brand, I'm doing business with you. I want to how much reach can I do from giving you this money amount or doing business with you? How much my brand will have reach? If I know you only have reach in Dallas, and I want, you know what I'm saying, like it's cut off
or
right there.
Or only in America,
only
as
in America,
opposed to America.
You know what I'm saying
Europe
now?
And
because like if we have somebody right here, you only have reach in Dallas. Cool. I need the Dallas market, so I'm gonna do business with you. But then I have this other person that has, all the United States. Obviously, I have to give that person more money or more opportunities or more resources, to make sure that happens.
Do you think football players know that? Are they taught that?
I feel like they just haven't looked into it. I feel like right now, actually right now they're looking more into it just because, we're having these games overseas and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, like that's the NFL doing something for the NFL, not for.
And one thing we know is that when it comes to players, the NFL will do its thing, but players do kind of have to look out for themselves a little bit.
Exactly. So I think, and that's what I'm trying to get more guys to realize, especially like, saying like the schedule already came out for next year. Most of the teams do. So like you already have an overseas game this summer. Why not already be in that country in the summer, spend some time in the country, build that fan base? So when you go over there for your game in the season, you already got a fan base already over there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just little stuff like that. I just feel like right now it's getting there. But like I said, individual players need to realize that what they can do personally for their personal brands, and kind of build that up. And like I said, I was able to do that for me, and I ain't even touched the NFL football.
And real quick, I just want to say, I know we're frozen on the screen, so shout out to the people who are still listening. Sorry that we're frozen on the screen. I'll make sure and get some good footage for y'all later of these clips. But continuing the conversation that we're having about what you were able to do for yourself compared to, what the average football player is able to do on a global perspective. I'm curious how much of this is cultural, because when it comes to the sports world, I'm gonna flesh out what I'm thinking about. When I think about basketball, soccer, and tennis, I feel like they mesh better with the cultures of other countries, whereas
Correct.
what we see or what we think about when we think about the culture of American football, of NFL football, what we think about, it doesn't feel like something that would blend as well in Europe, in Asia, so on and so forth. So have you noticed a little bit of cultural resistance when it comes to the game of football?
For sure, a little bit, especially being these different countries. And like I said, that just goes back to like football just never was established in these other countries to be involved in the culture of these other countries. Basketball's been that for years, hundreds of years. Soccer the same way, tennis, you know what I'm saying? So they've already established this mesh in the culture. Football has not got there yet. And that can be another story as far as, certain tactics where football needs to bring in the culture of these different countries to actually be international. But, for example, like just me being in, seeing how football's changed and how the demeanor of football in different cultures is, it varies from different countries. You know what I'm saying? For example, like, growing up in this system, we're very competitive. Like, for example, like practice. Like, practice can be very competitive as far as me talking, smack from,
You can cuss, it's fine.
Yeah, talking shit to, one of my teammates, they talking back, you know what I mean? And even like, sometimes the coaches get into it, which is very normal. At the end of the day, it's all just competitive. We just making each other work. But like, I remember one time, I'm in Mexico, and actually, you know what? Crazy thing is, I'm in Tijuana. I was playing with Trayvon Boykin. He's a TCU legend. And I was playing with Terrence Williams, a Cowboys legend. We were all in Tijuana playing, actually 2 years ago, playing in Tijuana for Tijuana Galgos. And like, we're in practice. Obviously, we know we grew up in Dallas. We know each other. We're in practice, competing, talking shit to each other, back and forth. And it got so heated where, obviously, we know it's not that serious, but the Mexican players don't. And so they thought that we were actually trying to get in a fight and stuff like that. So it was like, no, like, chill. I'm like, nah, like, you don't understand. Like, this is just us just talking shit, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So just certain stuff like that, little things like that, as far as culture, like, they're just not used to, because, like, for like, tennis is a gentleman's sport.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't,
you can get mad at yourself in tennis, and people will be like, oh my goodness, why is he behaving this way?
Exactly. And, as far as the violence, the most violent sport that's kind of comparison to football is rugby. Rugby's pretty big internationally. But as far as like,
it's physically violent, but even then, from like I would say the sportsmanship has to be there. Now the after parties I hear get crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
sorry.
But the reason why I asked about this was because in the NFL, it feels like these rules about sportsmanlike conduct and a lot of these, what I consider ticky-tack penalties.
For sure.
Like, there have been guys who've literally gotten a flag thrown for pointing at, actually not even pointing, for looking at another player the wrong way. And I was just like, is that related to the international expansion? Like, is it?
You know what? I've never thought of it that way, but maybe. You know what? That makes a good point. Because, as far as sports internationally, culturally, sportsmanship is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even actually another culture thing that we do, that I've realized playing in Mexico. After the game, you shake hands with the teammates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then every time the game ended, you shake hands with teammates, and then you had to go around and shake hands with all the fans that were around the thing.
Yeah, we do that in roller derby too.
And that was everything. And then sometimes, like for the away games, they would have the fans would have a chant for the away team, and be like, pretty much, thank you. Thank you for the competition.
So it'd be really awkward if you cussing out a player on the opposing team.
Yeah, but
the whole
that
game,
was,
and then afterwards you're like, oh, thank you for
that. Was happening. It's just sometimes we just couldn't understand the players because it was in Spanish. You know what I mean? Or they couldn't understand that because we were in English. But at the end of the day, it's very sportsmanlike. So I think that's like I said, that's a cultural thing that might get adjusted. But then again, I grew up a different way. Like football, like that was part of the game. Trash talking. I want it to be fun. So and it's a bunch of emotion. So sometimes all these antics afterwards, it's just emotion coming out because I'm so into the game. And that's just, if you want good, a good product on the field, emotion, you want to see that from the players. But like I said, sometimes, obviously don't go overboard, but I feel like some of the stuff, like the taunting stuff, we can let that slide a little bit.
Maybe. I would say, from an American perspective, we absolutely can let it slide. But from some of the things that I've seen overseas, I don't know. It depends on how much Americans are trying to sell this game. And so we're about to get a little bit deep, but my audience is used to me nerding out on them. But let's talk about Japan, for example, right?
For sure.
So Japan has the X League. That's their. Have you ever played in Japan?
No, actually, crazy backstory about Japan. Actually, leaving from Mexico, a Japan team was the first team that called me to go over there. So actually, I was getting my visa to go over to Japan.
Okay.
Something
happened?
In the midst of that, an old coach that I came across with got the head coaching job for the Paris team.
And that's how you ended up in Paris.
He reached out to me. I was like, either Paris or Japan. I was like, I've never been to Paris. Plus, I already know this coach. And then one thing about me, I just wanted to go to a good coaching situation too, and he was a coach that was at Vanderbilt too, and stuff like that. And then it was it was gonna be a culture shock to go to Japan. I don't think I was ready for that yet.
It would have, but I'm a weeb, so the idea doesn't bother me. But I can see how anybody might be like, Paris, Japan, yeah, I'm going Paris. But okay, so Japan, for example, they have their X League. That's their football league. Hey, Chris Johnson, I see you in the chat. What's up? But they have rules related to sportsmanship to the point where not only do they not want players displaying certain levels of aggressiveness, but it's if it's a televised game, they won't even show it on TV. They don't want that kind of thing influencing their culture. And there seems to be an understanding in a lot of countries. I just think in certain countries it's stated more explicitly that entertainment and sports will impact a culture. And what we see in Japan right now from a political standpoint, a lot of people are talking about oh, they're so unfriendly to foreigners. What's actually happening is that there's been an influx of tourism in Japan. And the more people who go over there, more people are inspired to stay there. Last time Japan got a little bit lax when it came to people not from there going over there, they started to notice a difference in their culture and in their society. They didn't like it. They didn't like it. And so they were like, no, we're pushing back against that. And so that's why, while it does kind of seem like the kind of thing that countries should be willing to compromise on, I feel like when it comes to the culture aspect, no, there are some countries who take it that serious.
Yeah.
And will be like, no, we are not bringing your product here until y'all get it together in terms of your behavior and your language. So I could absolutely see the NFL taking that really seriously.
Japan runs a strict program
especially
over there.
with flag football becoming a big thing.
Oh yeah, flag football is actually in Mexico. Mexico has the first ever professional women's flag league.
Yeah,
connected to
America's trying to follow up with that.
They are. Actually, I don't know if people know about it, but Blake Griffin, his investment group actually invested $100 million into the Mexican Football League that will also invest into that women's professional league. Actually, the Diana Flores, she is the quarterback for the national team for the Mexican team. She's the ambassador. Got to meet her a few times. Great woman. But Yeah, flag football is the big thing, and one thing that I've always liked about the way it's going now, as far as flag football, it can be a women's sport too. You know what I mean? At first, like football was mainly a football men's sport. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of deteriorates away from it being global, because all these global sports, women also play it too. Basketball, tennis, so forth and so forth. So I'm glad we was able to kind of, and then also too, it's so expensive to play football.
Oh, really?
You know what I'm saying? The helmet, the equipment.
all the
You know what I'm saying? A
equipment.
lot of people can't afford those equipment. You know what I'm saying? Especially overseas. Most of the time, most of the like the clubs or the youth teams in Mexico were donated, from the states for those helmets, stuff like that. Because
Wow.
a football helmet's $400, shoulder pads $300, cleats, depending on which ones you're going to get, $200.
So that's another way these players from the States could probably really impact a team
Exactly.
overseas.
With a flag, all you need is some cleats and some flags, which is probably
Does
$20.
make it more
And
accessible.
on top of that, it's not as one thing, because even when I was growing up, my mom at first didn't want me to play football because she's like, I don't want my baby to get hurt. You know what I mean? With flag, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? It's less injuries. So
I actually had the opportunity to coach a flag football team. I learned there can be contact, but you're right, it's not the same as full tackle.
yeah, for
Nowhere
sure.
near the
So
same. It's more like incidental contact.
I'm a big thing on women's sports, because I was raised by a single mother, so as far as women, like I want them to be on their own. But I'm glad that that's gonna help it football become global, is with women being involved, because you know how y'all can get when y'all so invest into something, y'all gonna go wall to wall for it. So actually,
At least you said something positive, because sometimes people start off statements, you know how y'all can get, and I'm just like,
y'all do y'all things when y'all investing and stuff like that. So I'm glad we got y'all involved, because we know y'all finna push it. And so for like right now, that's kind of what's building the global presence of football, is flag football, women's to be exact. You know what I'm saying? They're doing more for women just because they know that now that we got a whole category of people that can actually play football now, that used to, like, we just kind of frown upon. So
well, I really look forward to talking to you more about that in future episodes, because I feel like you have a lot to offer. Also, there's just so much going on in the world of global sports in general, plus football. Not only do we have flag football ramping up in advance of the Olympics, we've got the FIFA World Cup coming to North America. We've got the Winter Olympics starting in February. There's so much to talk about when it comes to sports on a global level. So I'm glad that we'll have you here. We've got you here today. And if you're watching / listening, yes, David will be back. I don't know when. I don't have a schedule.
Just let me know what time, when, where I'll be here.
But David will be back, and we'll talk more about global sports and football on a global scale. But before we get out of here, it's the end of the year, so I want to make sure I hit y'all with one more as it is in sports, so it is in life, before 2025 wraps up, because I feel like this Trayvon Diggs situation makes for a really good foundation for as it is in sports, so it is in life. So the way the Trayvon Diggs situation relates to life is the fact that I'm sure a lot of us have experienced a time where we go into a situation feeling like it may be one of the best things that could ever happen to us. And maybe it really is a life-changing situation, but then at some point, something changes. You can call it something going wrong, something going bad, the situation getting toxic, you growing apart, whatever you want to call it. This beautiful situation that you were in, where everything seemed to be going great, where you were going to do it maybe for the rest of your life, or at least until 2028. And then something happens and things don't go that way. And when that happens, there are so many ways you can take that situation and so many ways that you could think about moving forward. Now, I won't speak for Trayvon Diggs. I don't know what his situation is. I don't know how he feels about being released. But I do know that when it comes to human beings, and when we're fired, or when we experience a breakup, or when we experience a loss of a friendship, sometimes we can feel grateful. I have a friend who was let go from a certain job, and while he didn't want to be jobless, he was miserable at that job. And so, yes, it sucked to be fired. It sucked to be uncertain about his likelihood of survival and ability to pay his bills. But at the end of the day, he was relieved, because it finally pushed him to do what he should have done way sooner, which was find a better situation. sometimes we start looking at ourselves. Sometimes we start blaming ourselves. Now, sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. And it could mean we're blaming ourselves in the sense that we're taking an honest look at the situation and we're saying, okay, what could I have done better? What should I have done better? Or sometimes we're actually putting pressure on ourselves that doesn't actually deserve to be there. But the point is, when something like this happens, your only option is to move forward. Time goes on. Situations will move on. Whoever it was that fired you or broke up with you, they're going to move on. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself is take what you've learned from these situations and move forward and try to become an even better version of yourself, whether it was your fault or not. One of the things that I commented on recently about Trayvon Diggs, I talked about the fact that I ran into him recently after a game. And it was literally the most positive interaction that I've ever had with Trayvon Diggs. It was short, but it was positive, and it left an impression because this was a guy who I'd seen before, and it felt like this man wanted to stab me. I don't know. He just has this glare on his face sometimes where I was just like, why do you hate me, right? But this was the first time that I saw him, and he actually smiled and was like, hey, how are you doing? And I said, hey, how are you doing? Like I said, short interaction. I saw him, I saw George Pickens, but it did leave an impression, right? And so I just want you to think about that. If you've had a 2025 where you lost something, you left a job, you ended a relationship, just remember, even the smallest actions, the smallest interactions can be your next step forward to a better reputation or a better situation. So I want you to think about 3 things if you've gone through something like that this year. 1, I want you to think about, what did I learn? You don't have to romanticize the situation and think about what you enjoyed, think about the good times. Maybe it's good that the situation ended. But what you can think about is, what did you learn and how you can take those lessons moving forward. The second thing I want you to think about is, what does this mean for my life and the next phase of my life? Do you actually want to stay on the path that you were already on? Or is there something else that you'd rather do with this newfound freedom, with this opportunity to move into something else? And the third thing that I want you to think about is, how can I take the lessons that I've learned and actually become even better, whether that's in a new role or your same role? So take question number 2, add it to question number 1, and you get question number 3, which is, how do I become even better at whatever it is that I decide to do? Because when it comes to this life, I know we always talk about how life is short, but like, hey, you only get one. So even if something unfortunate, terrible, disappointing happened, you can still take the next month, the next week, the next year, and turn it around into something beautiful if you so choose. It's really up to you at the end of the day. So, like I always say, as it is in sports, so it is in life. And that's the wrap up for the year. We're going to be back next week, obviously. I might have a different guest with me next week. I'm still working on it. And I do still want to talk to you guys about the defensive coordinators. People are talking about Brian Flores. People are talking about Jim Schwartz. People are talking about Aaron Whitecotton. And I feel like there are good conversations to be had about all of them. So keep those notifications on. Like I always say, we have a lot of conversations to get to in 2026, and I cannot wait to go on this new journey of the next leg of Bitches Love Sports with you all. It's my 5th year, you guys. July will be 5 years doing this podcast. Can you believe it? But before we get out of here, thank you. I don't have a soundboard, so it's good to have somebody in here clapping with me today. But I want to say thank you to David.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for coming through. Look forward to having you again.
Thank you so
to
much.
Everybody watching, I hope you had a happy holiday and that you have a happy new year. And I look forward to seeing you on the next show. So this has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports on NTX Radio. I'm your host, Jazz Monet, and we're out.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no